Hi, everyone. Welcome to Fearless Gray with Jennifer Sloan. I'm really excited today. I have my first guest, and our guest is Professor Tammy French. She's a professor of communications, and she coordinates the public speaking at the University of Whitewater, Wisconsin, University of Wisconsin-Whitewater. She's been in the profession for 20 years. She focuses on teaching the core gen class of, I forget the right words, public speaking, which all freshmen have to take when they come in. So she's going to be a particularly valuable resource because she sees a lot of freshmen. She also teaches class in interpersonal communication, corporate communication, and nonverbal communication. And today we're going to focus on our college freshmen. So many of us have our children going off to college for the first time this year or even in the next future years. And so she has some really valuable tips for our students to get off to a good start. So Tammy, welcome to Fearless Gray. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, thank you, Jennifer. Thank you for having me.
So you see a lot of freshmen.
I do. I see a ton of freshmen, yeah, and young students in general, freshmen, sophomores, that kind of thing.
So you said a lot of them come with new and excitement. What things do they come? What do they need to come to your classroom with that they don't always do because they're new and excited but don't know what they need to have? What would you suggest they need to bring to class?
Sure. Well, you know, it's interesting because they come from different high school backgrounds and different high school experiences, right? So different high schools sort of stress different levels of organization or different levels of being prepared when you come to class. In some classes in high school, you can walk in and not really bring anything because all of what they need is provided by the teacher. So one of the things that I see some mistakes freshmen or young students make is coming to class really with nothing. Perhaps they've gotten used to taking, just having their phone with them, for example. And in so many college classrooms, we really still expect you to bring something to write on and something to write with. And so even if perhaps you're used to having a tablet where a student will take a lot of notes on a tablet, for example, there might be a worksheet the teacher passes out and expects you to write on. And so if you didn't even bring a pen with you, you know, you're going to be at a disadvantage as a student. So it's surprising, frankly, how many times we see that, or we say, you know, take out a piece of paper, I need you to do an activity, and the students won't have a piece of paper and they'll end up having to borrow from people. So that's one mistake I think some freshmen make is they think, well, we're in the 21st century, we shouldn't have to, we're so high tech. Well, yeah, we're high tech, but sometimes we go old school in the classroom. So that's one area I would say is just making sure that you bring stuff. You have to, you know, still participate in that way. The other thing, and this is a big one, I think sometimes students haven't yet learned to take responsibility for their own actions and their own behaviors. So, for example, in the class I teach, I'm really strict about being on time for class. I want you there on time because it can be really disruptive if someone comes in a few minutes late and we've gotten started with things and someone's trying to kind of slide into a seat in a row or something. And so we take points out for tardiness and students are like, but hey, I'm here. And we try to explain, well, yeah, but in your workplace someday when you're in a real job, you have to be on time, and getting there a few minutes late could really disrupt things. So when those kinds of things happen, sometimes students are really quick to blame other things. You know, my alarm didn't go off, it's not my fault. My roommate cut me up really late the night before, it's not my fault. It's snowing outside, it's not my fault. And I try really hard to work with them to explain that sometimes, yes, life trips all of us up. Certainly I'm late sometimes when I don't expect to be. But sometimes you can plan ahead. And gosh, it's supposed to snow tomorrow, I'm going to leave a few minutes early. Or gosh, I didn't get my assignment turned in on time. That's on me. That's not on my teacher for having a deadline. And so getting them to understand that both the good choices and the bad choices they make are it's on them. They have to be accountable for that. And again, accepting the fact, yeah, none of us are perfect. We all make mistakes, and that's okay. But let's kind of be grown-ups about it and accept responsibility for that. So those are a couple areas that I think sometimes new freshmen need to be reminded of.
I think it's such a good point you made too. Like mistakes in that are, you know, you're going to be late or you're going to miss things, but you're responsible. You know that, and that's good. That's a really good, valuable lesson actually that they can take into life. Like no one is perfect, but when you fall down, not fall down, but you know, when you slip up, it's you.
Right. Interestingly, I do teach an honors section sometimes of the same course. And I found so often, and I tell students this flat out, with my honor students, it's not necessarily that they're just so much more brilliant than quote unquote the regular sections, but they seem to have, they seem to come prepared. They seem to have a little bit of a higher level of organization, I would say. So for example, if I say to the honors section, next time you come to class, make sure you bring your textbook. We don't usually need it in class, but we're going to need it next time. Make sure you bring it. I will probably have almost every student remember to bring it. One or two might forget. In a regular section, I bet I would have, that number would be way down, 50 to 75% would remember to bring it. And so it's just kind of a level of, the honor students are often just a little more prepared and perhaps a little more organized. And I would say that's a really important point in college, is to stay organized. Staying organized is really key. I too have a college. He's going to be a sophomore this year, and not a freshman. But he, oh boy, he challenges me because he is not always as organized as he should be. I wish he was. But I have to say that he said for the first time ever, he kept like a daily planner sort of last year. He's an athlete, and he was involved in some other things. And he said that really helped. And so
I think it's really, like your point that you see is the difference between regular students is that they're organized and prepared. And I think that's what our kids need to understand. Like, you don't have to go with the smartest student to succeed in college. If you if you're the most prepared and organized, you're going to have greater success. It sounds like what you see.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. Yep. And I would add to that too. I think that sometimes the successful student, whether it's an honor student or just a regular student, they really pay attention to and adhere to deadlines, due dates for assignments and deadlines for other kinds of things. That's one area I can say sometimes I feel like some high schools do a little bit of a disservice to students when they allow students, and particularly juniors and seniors who are starting to get up there in their high school education, when they allow students to turn a lot of things in late. Because then they come to college and they expect that they should be able to turn things in late. And yes, some college professors will accept late assignments, but there's many of us that actually know, you know, in my class, a deadline is a deadline. And if you like, assuming there's no medical excuse or something, if you turn something in late, well, frankly, I won't accept it. You'll just get a 0, whether it's a little assignment or a big assignment. And of course, that takes the breath away of some students who have never had that happen to them before. But I really feel like my job, and frankly, any of us who teach some of these younger students, our job is to prepare students to be good college students, not just good in our class per se. And part of that is learning that, yes, if you're going to be someday a good employee, you've got to learn to get things done when they're supposed to be done. Your employer's not going to say, oh yeah, sure, I wanted this today, turn it in tomorrow for a 10% deduction. I mean, that's not how it happens, right? So I really feel that those are some little life lessons that I think early college courses need to teach students, and students need to realize, yeah, that's kind of important. So they need to write that down when they can. And sometimes just doing a little troubleshooting or problem solving on their own can be really helpful for students.
Do you find that students college are generally good at troubleshooting, or do they oftentimes come to you with like, oh, I don't know how?
They often come to me, yeah. Or come to any of us saying, you know, gosh, I can't get something to work. What should I do? And you know, I'm often happy to help them, but then trying to point them in the right direction of, okay, well, next time if this happens again, this is a resource on campus you can go to or something. So yeah, I mean, and that part of that I think is just learning how to adult, right? Learning how to kind of figure out what's the best resource to go to solve my problem.
Well, that's, and now students that come in and they're fairly successful, what do they do right off the bat that other kids might struggle a little?
I think successful students jump in right off the bat. So for example, if there's, well, in my class, for example, we have a very early speech that usually is due the second week of class, which again, students sometimes think they can come in and just sort of coast for a couple of weeks. Well, not really. We only have 15 weeks of school. So students, the successful students will often jump in. They'll maybe start thinking about an assignment. Maybe they'll come up and ask some questions about an assignment within the first day or 2 or 3 of class. And so we really try to preach that the earlier you get started on something, really just like anything in life, then the more confident you'll feel about it. You'll probably be at least a little less anxious about it too. So definitely jumping in right away, asking questions if necessary. Sometimes students have, just obviously personal things going on in their own life, whether it's something happy, like, gosh, in November, my sister's getting married and I already know I need to miss this class. Or sometimes it's other kinds of struggles or challenges they're faced with. Letting teachers know that ahead of time and just talking with them about, I am kind of a poor test taker, for example. Can you give me some suggestions even before we get to our first test of how I can really work to study now, kind of optimize my study skills and try to do the best I can. Those kinds of things. We teachers love to know that students are already being really proactive about their education and proactive about their assignments and eager to find out what they can do to really succeed. Matthew, and I want them to be successful. At the same time, I want to hold them accountable. If they haven't been coming to class, they're going to get some points off for that. And, it's a little bit of growing up sometimes that way.
You like it when students come and talk to you, don't you? As opposed to just...
Love it. Absolutely. And I understand students are shy, and thanks to things like email, a lot of students would rather email a question or email a concern instead of stopping in. And I fully understand it. Sometimes it's just more convenient. But boy, it's really nice for us to get to know students a little personally, know what's going on, but frankly for students to get to know us as well, because you just never know. Again, I teach, most of my classes are sort of freshman and sophomore level classes. You never know when you get to be a junior or senior and you need a reference for something. And if you've made a little bit of a personal relationship with a professor, even if it's someone that isn't in your major, you can go to that person and, hey, I haven't seen you for a little while, but remember me from this class? And if you've stopped up a couple times and we've had some conversations, then it's a lot easier to write a great, really thorough letter. I always recommend that you try to establish a little bit of a personal relationship with your professors if at all possible.
Well, and it is that with like email and that, it's so much easier. You can still communicate, but not develop the relationship really. And I think it's a really growth thing too, as far as wanting to have a communication with an adult, and somebody you respect and things like that.
Yes, and it's true, because students don't have to do that as often. Mm-hmm. Younger people just don't do that quite as often as I think when we were their age, perhaps, just because of technology and because of social media, and there's just not quite as much face-to-face interaction. Not that it's bad or good or anything like that, but it is a little bit of a skill that most of us need to have as adults in our working world, in our work lives, and being able to look people in the eye and shake their hand and say hi, and to say I'm really having trouble with this assignment. Can you help me? Or to say, gosh, I really screwed up. How can we get out of this? Or to say, just to come up and have a conversation. In general is a really great skill to develop.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that, again, so much of it, to use the word proactive again, so much of it is just taking kind of charge of your own experiences in college and your own, both on the academic side, which is kind of my wheelhouse, of course, but even on the extracurricular side, where you're going to get what you put in, however much or however little you put in. And so whether in your classes, as we said, talk to your professors, jump into the assignments quickly. It doesn't mean you're a goody two-shoes if you actually read a book and read a chapter that you're supposed to read. And certainly extracurricularly, lots of people think, well, I'm not really an athlete, so there it goes. I can only speak for Whitewater, but Whitewater has literally hundreds of clubs. If you can't find a club, you're just not looking, because there's a club for, I think, any religion, any race, any hobby, anything that you have. And while that may seem like, well, why should I join the knitting club? And yes, there is literally a knitting club at Whitewater. What good will that do for me professionally? Well, guess what? It starts to teach you some of these skills we just talked about, like talking to others face-to-face and meeting people that you might not otherwise interact with. And you never know where it's going to lead. So I think being involved, doing a few extra things, certainly if you can work a little bit on campus or do some of these volunteer jobs, that stretches you. So much of college is stretching you and sometimes pushing you in uncomfortable ways. But all of these kinds of experiences, in 4.5, 5 short years really, really help us to develop, to be that much more employable. And ultimately, that's what we're going for is we want to be someone that some employer is going to say, yeah, I want that person right there.
So, block on.